Hi guys, and welcome to a Hector lecture guide to the fight E12S Eden's Promise Unsynced. This fight is going to assume a full party of level 90s, so 8 players, and unlike E4S and E8S, you can't really cheese this one with more DPS players because both 2 healers and 2 tanks make this fight considerably easier. So I recommend sticking with the standard lineup. Couple things you need for this fight. One, you need your Titan stack groups. These are just light parties, and you need one group has an agreed upon direction northwest, the other group has an agreed upon direction southeast. You also need Shiva spread positions. These are just roughly either cardinals or intercardinals for all of the melees, and your range just need to roughly know which side north-south of the arena they're going to spread to. Last thing you need to be familiar with are the cast attacks from normal mode. So if the boss tethers to Ramuh, this is an out that hits in a circle. If the boss tethers to Ifrit, this cleaves everything but the side, so you need to go east-west. Boss tethers to Leviathan, this hits everything except for the middle, so you need to go north-south. And lastly, if the boss tethers to Garuda, this hits all of the cardinals, so you need to be on an intercardinal. These will always be combined as a set of 2 with the possible safe spots looking like this. Of all these, the one to focus on is Ifrit Leviathan. That's the tightest spot. You'd really need to get a feel for how close you can be to the boss or have to be to not get clipped. The fight starts with Obliteration, which is a raid-wide. He'll mitigate it lightly. It doesn't hit very hard anymore. And afterwards, the 6 primals are going to appear around the arena. The boss is going to immediately tether to either Titan or Shiva with a Junction Titan or Junction Shiva. Junction Titan tells you that the next mechanic is going to have group stacks with it. Junction Shiva says that the next mechanic comes with spreads. So let's look at Junction Shiva first. This means after both of the next mechanics, the group needs to spread. First, the boss does a Rapturous Reach and shows which side they're going to cleave. Everybody goes on to the other side. Careful, it's more than 180 degrees. And then afterwards, the range can already pre-spread, but the melees should spread afterwards. There's a couple of seconds between when the cleave goes off and when the spread happens. Next, the boss is going to do a cast and tethered to 2 primals. This one here is saying that you need to go to the sides, east-west, and out. So go to your nearest one, to your spread spot, wait for the safe spot, and then spread afterwards. If instead we'd gotten stacks for Junction Titan, just to show what that would look like, for the Rapturous Reach, we're going to use the intercardinal waymarks as groups. So our group 1 goes to A, and our group 2 goes to D. If it had been on the other side, we would have used B and C. Afterwards, again, we get a cast, the stacks happen, and then we get a cast. So we'll get that same cast as before. This is the sides and out. Both groups cannot go to the same side. That's going to make it messy. Instead, our 1s would always go to whatever safe spot is nearest to red-purple, and the other one goes nearest to blue-yellow, using the waymarks as our guide. So the 2s are going to run across to the 2-way mark, and our 1s stay on the 4-way mark. And now you can just stay put and dodge this. Just to show you one tricky possibility, if you happen to get the small safe spot one here where it's sides, but you need to be in because it's Leviathan, just make sure after the hit that you wiggle out just a little bit. Otherwise, there's a possibility that one person can be in the middle of both stacks. This is followed up with Formless Judgment. This Tankbuster hits both tanks with 2 hits. It's supposed to require a swap and hit incredibly hard. Just have both tanks invuln it. You will skip the other 2 Tankbusters in this fight. So have both invuln it and completely ignore the mechanic. Afterwards, there's another Obliteration raid-wide before the boss junctions with Shiva. This is the start of Shiva Phase. For Shiva Phase, have everybody stack middle and prepare for Diamond Dust. Make sure when this cast finishes, 1, mitigate and shield, just to make this easier on your healers throughout, and do not move, because the stage is going to go all glowy, and when you can finally see things again, the stage is ice, and there are 2 safe spots opposite each other. We're going to have group 1 slide to the red-purple safe spot, and group 2 slide to the blue-yellow safe spot. You need to do this in one motion. Take your time, aim it carefully, and just slide. As this is happening, each of our healers is targeted with a stack marker, which is why we're in our light parties. Afterwards, where it was safe is now unsafe, and we get targeted with spread markers. For this, we're going to have all of the DPS slide left facing in, all of the tanks and healers slide right, and you can see that our melees have gone closer to the boss, our ranged and healers have gone further from the boss. As we get hit with the spread, an icicle drops on us. And we're all going to be tethered to a random icicle. Now, go middle just so you can figure out which icicle you're tethered to, as the boss signifies that there's going to be a knockback in a bit. You'll see there's those same 2 safe spots, so go into those. And once the middle disappears, you're going to run middle and position to get knocked back away from your icicle tether. So whichever icicle you're tethered to, position yourself in the hitbox quite tight and get knocked back. Don't get knocked back into the red. There's time to adjust after the knockback. So you'll see here, a couple of our players are quite close together. We're about to all get hit with line AoEs that start at the icicles. So after the knockback, just position, wiggle a little bit so you're away from other players and you're not in line with an icicle. Those all go off, and if you've all lived, congrats, that's the hardest part of this fight done. There's an obliteration raid-wide, and then immediately we get Junction Titan, and this signifies the start of Titan Phase. Earth and Fury is just a hard-hitting raid-wide that doesn't hit all that hard anymore, so just heal or mitigate through it. And the stage is going to transition with all these white circles around it. Now, you're going to see some familiar symbols if you've done E12S. The way these work, if you have a yellow pyramid above your head, you need to be in a circle by yourself. Orange pyramid, you need at least one other player with you. Blue pyramid, you're going to make your circle and all the adjacent circles explode. So you need to be away from others. Very important that a blue pyramid never ends up in the middle because they will wipe the party in one go. Now, for how we spread these out, we have yellows always go in the north for this first one, as you can see detailed here. Oranges go east-west, and the DPS with blue goes to the south. Need to go to these exact positions and hug next to your rock. You might want to picture on a second screen up to remind yourself what positions you need to go to. But go to your assigned position. Note that we'll always have tanks and healers kind of on the west side of the arena and DPS always on the east side, just for consistency. After the explosion, go middle and wait for your next symbol. This time we get mostly orange, but 2 blues. This is the trickiest one. The blues are random, so you need to adjust relative to who's there. Look, whoever's closest to the north goes north. Whoever's closest to south goes south. All of the oranges are just going to go same as before, tanks and healers west, DPS east. Go to your stage, explode, and go back middle for one last set. Another mixture of everything. For this one, it's orange in the north, yellow north corners, blue south corners. Remind yourself where to go, take your time, go to the right circle, and as long as everybody does it right, you'll be fine. If 1 or 2 people goof, it might lead to some deaths. It might lead to it spiraling out of control. The easiest way to do this is just do it fully clean. Obliteration hits, and there's virtually no mechanics left. You're going to see a big version of the boss appear on the south side of the arena. And this is just going to mean that for this last cast, which will hopefully be the last mechanic you see, the group needs to be stacked together. To do this without voice comms, you just pick a letter like D and say, we're going to go to the safe spot nearest to D for this. In this case, it's north, south, out, so everybody's going to go stack at 3. Dodge the mechanic, take the stack, and right about now, the boss should be dead. If you have successfully killed this boss, it'll phase away for a second before showing a knockback. That is you having cleared the phase and getting ready to phase 2. If you see this, congrats, you've unlocked a checkpoint. Watch the cutscene, and as the stage changes, you have entered phase 2, the Oracle of Darkness. Just attack this boss once, and once it's targetable, you can jump off to reset. At the beginning, the boss starts north, and you want to have your main tank pull the boss all the way south. Hell's Wind will take everybody's HP to 1, just top them up with a heal before the Shockwave Pulsar raid-wide. This doesn't hit very hard anymore, so they don't need much health. We're then going to get back-to-back spells in waiting. The first one is either going to be a stack or a spread. The stacks will be on both healers. If you see whatever mechanic you see first, do it. Start to do it. So if we see stacks, we're going to get into our stack groups. The boss will cast another spell in waiting before this goes off, showing spread AoEs. Ignore these right now. What's actually happening is there's a countdown timer above the healer's head that's going to make the stacks hit. Now, before the next mechanic happens, you're going to get Darkest Dance. This targets the furthest player, so just have your main tank outside and everybody else in the hitbox, and your main tank will get hit by this. Everyone else should position ready for a knockback based off the boss to either get knocked into stack groups or spread groups. So in this case, we already had stacks, so we're going to get positioned to knock to spread. Now you can see right here, there is about a second or two to adjust. Our melees are going to gap close and move about to spread out away from our range. There's a Shockwave Pulsar raid wide, and then the big one, Basic Relativity. If you can do this mechanic, you'll clear the fight. Simple as that. This hits kind of hard, so mitigate, and then when it cast goes off, there's 6 red hourglasses and 1 yellow hourglass around the arena. There's also some purple-yellow tethers. You can mostly ignore these. What matters? Find the yellow hourglass. It helps that the tethers actually are either hugging the yellow hourglass or they're sort of aiming away from it. I'm going to break this down by role because it's quite complicated. Let's go, if you are a healer, here's all you need to know. Healers, find that yellow hourglass. One healer is going to go left of it, the other goes right. Use the waymarks as your guide. Wait for a while. Eventually, you're going to get blasted by a laser beam, and almost immediately afterwards, you're going to drop a little blue debuff underneath you. That's your cue to move to middle, which is your final position for this. There's a red AoE you're naturally dodging, stack middle. Everything's going to explode, you'll get stunned, things go crazy, and when you can see the screen again, you'll find yourself on the other side of the arena. You're about to get hit with light party stacks, so just stack with your light party. That's it for healers, pretty easy. If you are a tank, here's all you need to know. Tanks, find the yellow hourglass, go stand by the yellow hourglass. Before your return debuff goes off, you must be the two closest players to that hourglass. If you want to, you can just go there early, or you can get some uptime, attack the boss for a bit, and at the last second, dip out further. As long as you're the furthest when your return debuff goes off, the only thing you need to pay attention to is which hourglasses attacked the healers. In this case, the two hourglasses closest attack the healers. If the close ones shoot the healers, in a second, you're going to go bait the far hourglasses. If the healers get baited by far, you go for the near ones. It's always the opposite of what shoots the healers. Wait for the return debuff to go off, and now you are going to go bait the hourglass. And by that I mean be the closest player. They're going to shoot a laser beam at you from the hourglass. You want to try to aim those away from the group. As long as you've aimed it away, you're going to get stunned, everything freezes, and when the rewind happens, you'll find yourself on the other side of the arena. You just need to immediately go and stack with your group. DPS, you've got two different possible roles that you could fulfill. I'm going to break them down one at a time. If you have the ice debuff as a DPS, here's what you're going to do. First, find the yellow hourglass, but don't go toward it. Instead, if you think of the yellow hourglass as north, you're going to go directly east-west, 90 degrees from it on either side, and you guys are baiting these hourglasses. You're going to be the nearest player to it, and you're going to aim the lasers they're going to shoot at you away from the yellow hourglass. That's the yellow hourglass is where everybody stood. You don't want to accidentally shoot somebody with it. By the way, that ice debuff is a donut. Don't worry about that. It might go off now, but you're away from everybody else, so it's harmless. After your laser beam shoots you, go to the waymark by the yellow hourglass. You can be just in that direction. Don't be further near to the yellow hourglasses than the tanks. Wait for your return debuff to drop, and then go stack mid. And that's it. This could be potentially when your donuts go off, but again, you're in a position where nobody's going to get hit by it, so don't worry. Everything goes off, explodes, stuns, and when you realign, just stack with your group. If you have the fire debuff as DPS, this is the hardest role because you have to actually pay attention to your timer. You either have a short debuff or long debuff. When your debuff ends, you explode with a small AoE around you, so you need to be away from everybody else. First, find the yellow hourglass, go near it. If you have the short debuff, that would be a good time to go slightly out away from people to explode by yourself before going back to the yellow hourglass. Wait for your return debuff. Now, if you've already exploded, you can just go middle and the mechanic is done. If you haven't exploded yet, now is when you need to go out to explode away from the group. Right here, these are good positions. Everything stuns, everything freezes, and by the time that you can see the screen again, you just need to stack with your light parties. If you have survived this, you've done the hard part. There's a Shockwave Pulsar raid-wide, and then Singular Apocalypse is hopefully the last mechanic you see. Singular Apocalypse starts by spawning a little white orb that's going to go around and pulse around the arena to show you where some AoEs are going to hit later on. They're basically just revealing the pattern. At the same time, the boss faces a random cardinal and casts Cataclysm. You need to go opposite the way the boss faces. You can see those pulsing AoEs. They're not actually AoEs right now. They're just showing where in the future AoEs are going to hit. The boss jumps towards the other side, the way that they faced, and we dodge that AoE. Melees can immediately gap close. Range should just stay put. And if you look, the main tank needs to go in front of the boss. Everybody else is going away from where that white light was spinning. So whichever side it hasn't spun to yet. Black Halo is a Tankbuster. The main tank should take this with an invuln. You could maybe take it with cooldowns. It's meant to be a shared Tankbuster, but just invuln it. You'll have it back. Afterwards, the main sync stacks with the rest of the group, and now everybody's just looking at middle. Middle is going to explode with an AoE first. As soon as it explodes, run to middle, stack middle. Shell Crusher is what the boss is casting. That's a stack. So you see those AoEs hit around, and these cast finishes. It's all quite fast, faster than I'm showing here. After the stack finishes, you need to immediately start to spread, and you don't want to spread towards, in this case, towards the 4 side, because that's where those AoEs are still spinning towards. So spread where the AoEs have already hit, and make sure you're spread out from each other before Spirit Taker finishes casting. When it finishes, the boss jumps at a random player, hits them, and as long as everybody's spread out, nobody else gets hit. Worst case scenario, if you get hit by one of these white AoEs, you get a damage down, you take some damage, but it's not too hard to heal through now with the Unsync. There's a raid wide, and the boss starts to cast Intermediate Relativity, which is similarly a raid wide. If you've got some people dead, mitigate this because it hits harder based on how few players you've got. And I'm not going to go into Intermediate Relativity because this very much is a mechanic that should be skipped. When the cast finishes, you're going to see a lot of debuffs and stuff going off, but treat it instead as a soft enrage. You have 22 seconds from this point onwards to kill the boss, or you have to learn another mechanic. And that's it for this fight unsynced. Good luck going for the kill. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this useful. Take care.